Then, about 5 months later, on January 10th, 1987, in Central Alameda, a neighborhood in South Central, again discarded as if to be trash, the body of 23-year-old Barbara Bethune-Ware was found. Though there was no conclusive evidence of rape, Barbara was found to have been murdered via gunshot wounds to the chest. 3 months later, in a dumpster off Western Avenue in South Central neighborhood of Gramercy Park, police would find the body of 26-year-old Bernita Rochelle Sparks. Bernita's case found evidence of a drastic uptick in the scale of violence committed in the murder. Leading up to and during the murder, sickeningly, she was raped, beaten, and even strangled before the autopsy showed she was finally killed via gunshot wounds. Then, on November 1st, 1987, in the same alley police found Bernita's body in just 6 months prior, they would discover the lifeless body of 26-year-old Mary Catherine Lowe. Though thankfully not as brutal as Bernita's murder, it would be determined that Mary was raped prior to being shot to death. Almost 3 months later, approximately 4 miles away in the LA neighborhood of Westmont, police would find the remains of 22-year-old Lacrica Denise Jefferson. Believed to have been placed under a mattress the night before on January 29, 1988, it was found that she had fatally been shot through the heart. It is unclear whether she was abused, though a napkin with the word AIDS was found covering her face. Half a year later, under similar circumstances, police would find the body of 28-year-old Inez Elizabeth Warren on August 15, 1988. Once again in the Gramercy Park area of South LA, Inez was found to have been raped before being shot to death. In the same twist of fate, just 2 months later, 18-year-old Alicia Monique Alexander would be found having suffered the same brutal MO as the majority of the murders thus far. Again found to be raped, then shot to death, her remains were discovered in the Vermont Square neighborhood of South Central LA on September 11, 1988. Then, on November 20th, 1988, the serial killer would seemingly be shook into hiding. While on her way to a party, 22-year-old Henrietta Margette Washington would be approached by a clean-cut, young black male driving a well-kept car. After several minutes of playful conversation, the man would convince Henrietta to let him give her a ride. Henrietta found herself enjoying the man's company so much that she decided to invite him to the party. He would agree, but stated that he had to first stop by a relative's house. The two continued small talk on the way, and once they arrived, the man walked into the house. After a short time, the man returned, but this time the friendly man Henrietta had grown fond of was gone. The man would shout at Henrietta before pulling out a handgun and shooting her in the chest. She would eventually pass out from her injuries and recalls waking up to being raped and photographed. She pleaded with her attacker to please take her to the ER, but he denied her pleas. Instead, he pushed her from his moving car into an alley. Henrietta would muster up the strength to make her way to a friend's house where she waited to be found. Miraculously, Henrietta would be the only survivor of the string of senseless murders. While some speculate that the killer simply swapped MOs after this, it is widely accepted that there was a 14-year hiatus instead. But even this lull wouldn't last. On March 19, 2002, tucked into shrubbery in a dark alley in Inglewood, California, police would find a body belonging to 15-year-old Princess Cheyenne Bartholomew. Much like the earlier cluster of murders, Princess was found naked, abused, and strangled to death. This would mark the beginning of a new wave of murders following the same original MO. Over a year later, on July 11th, 2003, police would find more remains. 35-year-old Valerie Louise McCorvey was found raped with her clothes still around her ankles. She was found just outside the gate to a locked alley, and much like the other victims, her attacker left her lifeless body hidden amongst the trash. Years later, back in the killer's common hunting grounds in Gramercy Park of South Central, on January 1st, 2007, police would find a body wrapped in trash bags and discarded into a dumpster. After some examination, the body was found to belong to 25-year-old Genesia Levette Peters. Like many of the others, Genesia was found naked, though the autopsy showed somebody attempted to strangle her before shooting her to death. Though DNA linked several of the murders to the string of murders from the 1980s, the public was unaware of the potential of a serial killer living amongst them. That is until LA Weekly author Christine Pelisek broke the story and gave the unknown assailant the well-suited nickname of the Grim Sleeper, due to the long hiatus in the crimes. Soon after, media coverage regarding the Grim Sleeper would skyrocket. Dissatisfaction was reported among South LA residents towards the LAPD, especially amongst the victims' families, due to no one being informed that police believed many of the murders to be connected. Due to legislation not being drafted until 2004 that requires DNA to be collected from all convicted felons, police did not obtain Lonnie Jr.'s DNA when he was convicted of a felony in 2003 and served 3 years probation. In 2008, police had a lucky break, having arrested a Christopher Franklin for a felony weapons charge. Police collected Christopher's DNA and made a partial match believed to be familial. Being the first reasonably aged family member that could be the killer, police began to follow Christopher's father, Lonnie. While trailing Lonnie, police saw him discard an unfinished slice of pizza and promptly collected it for DNA evidence. Then, on July 7, 2010, Lonnie was officially arrested and indicted on 10 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and a special circumstance allegation for the multiple murders. Some evidence suggests there may have been more connected murders to Lonnie, but as of yet, no conclusions have been made. After the trials, Lonnie was found guilty of all 10 counts of murder and the charge of attempted murder, and on June 6, 2016, a jury sentenced Lonnie to death. On March 28, 2020, Lonnie David Franklin Jr. was found dead in his prison cell at 67 years of age. Unfortunately for many murder victim family members, the truth of whether Lonnie was behind the death of their loved one may have been laid to rest with Lonnie. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you. Like and subscribe for more serial